Kept you waiting, huh? What is up, digital companions? My name is Karn EX and welcome back to another video. My voice sounds a little bit weird. It's because I got COVID. I tried doing some warming up exercise and this is about as good as we got. I'm okay now, but I did have a vid recently. And it's custom art time again, sweet babies. And today we are fixing the Sincerity Armor Digivolutions from 02 and outside of it from various different media. Remember, when I say fixing, that really just makes for a better title, better in the algorithm. Unfortunately, algorithm stuff is how we have to play in this YouTube game. But really what myself and the artist Dry Designs and Fuzzy Comics, please do go follow them on Twitter, I appreciate you. All we're actually doing is taking the designs and making all of the Armor Digivolutions for a specific Digi-Egg fall in line with what we'd expect to see from the actual show 02. As there tends to be a big difference between in-show armors and armors created or existing post-show. Armors in-show being very clearly combining the rookie or depowered champion in Yakamon's instance, even if that body morphs and elongates, and mixing it with the very literal form of the Armor Digi-Egg. You can see one for one how the Courage Egg and Vmon becomes Flamedramon, and how the Reliability Egg and Armadillomon becomes Submarimon. And this is reflected in the toy line very intentionally, because yes, these forms were likely created to sell toys in the first place. When we see the non-02 armor evolutions, for example, if we look at Nohemon, well, it does keep the general theme of sincerity, right? It's got some grass elements. You could say that the crow is perhaps a pun on the idea of the early bird catching the worm, or the wormmon, which is what Armor Digivolves to Nohemon with the Digi-Egg of Sincerity, but Nohemon is lacking the clear visual element of the egg like Shurimon has with the grass and the shuriken. And indeed, to be honest, other than that early bird catches the worm pun, it's very difficult to see how Wormmon becomes Nohemon in the first place. In all of the designs, I'm also going to be looking for the crest of sincerity to be visible on the design, because it is the case in all of the in-show 02 armors that you can see the crest on there. And this video was paid for thanks to my wonderful Davers and Sovereigns over on patreon.com/Karn EX. If you want to go join them, I would appreciate it very much. You can pay as little as $3 for early access to all my videos, or there are other tiers right up to Daver and Sovereign, which get you a ton of bonuses, and you directly support custom art on this channel, meaning in months where we don't have sponsors, I can still work and do custom art with artists. The Davers that paid for the art in this video were Jeffrey Gibbons, Hylarin, GW, Mickey D343, and Tarapin, and my Sovereign, as always, is ZDK14. Thank you all so much for the support. Hope you enjoy the art in this video. Now, normally, I do not fix the Digimon directly from the show. However, in the kind of consultation period we do, me, Fuzzy, and Dry, Fuzzy and I agreed there could be a little bit of tweakage to Shurimon. So we're not doing a full redraw from base 1 for Shurimon, but we did want to add a couple more elements. Because while I think Shurimon does reflect the egg very well, the only real indication of Hawkmon being in there is this kind of tuft of red on the back. So Fuzzy stepped on just to slightly redesign Shurimon. Shurimon 1.5, you could call this. Changing that tuft into the feathers of Hawkmon, making the little tuft stick out under the mask and some more red tufts out of the pants. Really simple change, but one that I think makes it feel fully like Hawkmon and not kinda like Hawkmon. Just tease up Shurimon to be a much more perfect Armor Digivolution representative of the egg, in my opinion. Similarly, I think Yaksamon being a Vmon armor, and if we look at all the Vmon armors, we've said this before, Vmon does very well when it comes to non-02 armors with other Digi-Eggs. They're all basically pretty much perfect. The only changes up I thought were important were to make it so that the Digi-Egg of Sincerity was actually visible here. Yaksamon does have clear plant life elements, but unfortunately they are kind of like more generic viney feel, and that underbody, while it is blue like Vmon, isn't actually the right shade of blue. So Fuzzy just took Yaksamon, added the leaves and the shuriken. In particular, I love turning the shuriken into the training sword. I think that's very cool, with the shuriken on the back too. And a little bit more of a dial up of those blues to be more exact to the Vmon body color. It's small, simple changes on the existing Yaksamon. So again, this would be Yaksamon 1.5. I just like the way that Fuzzy did this. All right, now it's time to move into completely new art pieces. Although one of them is kind of a revision, all of these are done by Dry. And our first fix is Frogmon. And Frogmon is honestly kind of a fantastic Sincerity Armor Digivolution. It's got the shuriken, it's got the leaf vibe, and the fact that it's a ninja ties into that kind of ninja aesthetic that Shurimon has. I'm just a little unconvinced it properly works as an Armadillomon Sincerity armor. Instead, maybe working for something like Otamamon or Betamon or something, I don't know. Madoki Betamon maybe with the yellow. And so while I would be happy to keep it, I thought screw it. In for a penny, in for a pound, and got Dry to make something that felt more specifically designed for Armadillomon, Kawarimon, getting its name from the Kawarimi no Jutsu, aka the body substitution jutsu. I initially pitched to Dry that perhaps we should lean into into the idea of like ninjas being underground. You see a lot of common depictions of this, of ninjas in popular media popping up from under the ground. However, Dry ended up thinking that perhaps that was a little bit too similar to Digimon and wanted to keep the theme very much tied to sincerity. So instead, Dry felt that he had to find a different niche that didn't step on Digimon's toes. And so this Digimon is inspired by those tree trunks that ninjas use to replace them in combat, again in popular media. Combine that concept with moles and we have a ninja whack-a-mole that can create copies of its tree trunk and travel between them, confusing and frustrating the enemy. Its helmet is very thick and fits perfectly into the tree trunk, making for the perfect defense against bonks on the head. Love how Dry has done this. You can see the leaf from the Digi-Egg, you can see Armadillomon totally here but transformed into a mole, which I think is fun, a whack-a-mole. Indeed, Molemon or Whack-a-mon might be a good name for it too. Really fond of the way the claws are the same as the shuriken from the Digi-Egg, but Dry did put a shuriken into the tree trunk. Love how this has come out. Next up is Nohemon. This is Wormon's Digi-Egg of Sincerity Armor Digivolution. And again, I could see how this works. In the intro, I talked about the early bird catching the Wormmon. I think that's funny. And Nohemon, while a scarecrow, also appears to be an archer. And that is a traditional type of Japanese warrior, leaning into the other types of Japanese warrior and Japanese traditional archetypes that we see in the Digi-Egg of Sincerity armors. So I did like the idea of preserving the archer and indeed even the early bird catches the Wormmon feel, but just transmuting it to something a little bit different. Also, the crow is apparently the actual Digimon, and the scarecrow is just a decoy body, which is, you know, fine. But let's do something else for this, really tie into the Digi-Egg of Sincerity and create Kyudomon, coming from Kyudo, Japanese archery. Preserving all those elements we liked from Nohemon was the driving force with this Digimon, and I do think Dry absolutely delivered. And indeed, this Digimon's mask is inspired by the long-nosed Tengu, sort of a counterpart to Yaksamon's Oni-inspired mask, and as you can see, also based on that shuriken of the Digi-Egg, with the arrow and its feet also partly inspired by it. And just like Karatenmon, this Digimon is a follower of the Dai Tengu Digimon, whatever that means. I love how Kyudomon could fit into an existing pantheon here, Karatenmon, Vulturemon, even Nohemon, while still doing its own thing. And the particular attention to detail I love here from Dry is keeping that Wormmon antenna peeking out of the mask, and even the headpiece behind the mask feeling a bit evocative of Wormmon and Stingmon. The leaf armor is there, the shuriken is there, and we still kept it a bird-themed archer. Love it. Moving over to Kabukimon, honestly, this is another one where we may have just done a mild edit. It's a really solid Sincerity armor. I can see how the petals and feet are supposed to be similar to Gatomon and the general pink elements of the Crest of Light, but the grass element besides the flowers is basically exclusively the vine hands. You're not getting that green leafage, and the Crest of Sincerity is missing. The crest is missing, and you definitely have to do some mental gymnastics to fully acknowledge those Gatomon elements I mentioned previously. So for this one, similar to Shurimon and Yaksamon that Fuzzy did, Dry did not do a total overhaul, though he did draw it from scratch, but instead took Kabukimon and made it more thematically and visually correct to the Digi-Egg and Gatomon as Kabukimon 2.0. Now with leaf hands and petals just like the Digi-Egg, and the flower hand heads transformed into angry shurikens, but still evocative of Kabuki, this feels like a slam dunk to me. Dry also made the top half of the flower head more closely resemble Gatomon's ears and coloration, meaning the Digimon is still strongly under there, with that idea continuing to its traditional clothes and even its feet transformed to be more cat-like. I also really love that Dry kept the Kabuki mask itself nearly identical, so you can still unambiguously read this as Kabukimon, but now instead of that little whitish blue jewel on the forehead, we have the missing Crest of Sincerity back where it belongs. And finally, that brings us to Ponchomon, and I do adore that little fella. It's one of my favorite Digimon ever, actually, with its Patamon skin poncho and all, but I think I prefer it either as a Palmon evolution or a Death evolution for Togemon or something. I get that Poncho is tied to Patamon, it's the same skin as him, I guess, but I think it's a little bit lacking for Patamon. It feels like they kind of just went, Patamon, you can have Ponchomon. So I said to Dry, let's give Patamon something that matches Kabukimon, Gatomon Sincerity armor that we just redesigned, just like we did with the other armor fixes, and to evoke that matching relationship between Nefertimon and Pegasusmon, which ended up resulting in Taikomon, getting its name from the taiko, Japanese drums. Dry was mainly inspired by No-style theatre, which also features masks and is accompanied by drums. He imagined this as having a sort of supporting role alongside Kabukimon, Kabuki being another type of Japanese theatre, so we got Kabuki and No in these two Digimon, inspiring its allies with percussive energy while Kabukimon makes a dazzling performance. This Digimon also has a strong connection with Don Dokomon, and both are often seen performing together. What a slam dunk. A perfect companion to Kabukimon, or indeed our new Kabukimon 2.0. The taiko drum is an inspired choice, and I love having the Crest of Sincerity directly on there. The Patamon fur becoming this hair, still keeping a similar concept as we saw in Ponchomon with the Patamon fur being present, but much more noticeable. And indeed those ears of Patamon now also coming through, but slightly more muted to match the design of the clothing. Having basically kunai around its waist that also kind of form the shape of a shuriken is another inspired choice from Dry. This ended up, while I wasn't confident what direction we'd go with it, probably my favorite one of the entire video. And that is it. All of our fixings, revisions, 1.5s, 2.0s, and complete overhauls of the Sincerity Armor Digivolutions. Shurimon 1.5, Yaksamon 1.5, Kawarimon, Kyudomon, Kabukimon 2.0, and Taikomon. Let me know your favorites in the comments down below. Please do go follow the artists, Fuzzy Comics and Dry on Twitter. I appreciate you all very much. Shoutouts to my Sovereigns, EDK14, and my Davers for making this art possible over on patreon.com/Karn EX. Would mean the world if you joined them over there. There will be another custom art video this month, and there won't be one in September, but then will be 2 in October. That's kind of how we're going to work out the budget, give us time to gather funds for the artists, and give the artists time to do work. And then there'll be custom art again into December, maybe even in November. But I really love finally doing another armor fixings video, so hopefully this performs well in the algorithm. To ensure that, I would love it if you liked and left a comment. It really does help in the algorithm. If you're not subscribed already, please do subscribe. And thank you to my channel members here on YouTube for holding it down too. And I'll see you next time when we go digital. Bye bye.